And welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we've got another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video for you. Specifically, it is going to be a video in our series called Teams That Slap, and we're going to be looking at 3v3 offense. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so like I said, this is a series that we typically run for every GAC season. You're going to see this rotating pretty much every other month, 3v3 that is. 5v5 will run in between the 3v3 months. So we have our 3v3 offensive teams. Now, this is largely based off of the data that we get from the GG website. If you're not familiar with that, I suggest that you guys check that out. It's got a lot of great information on there. With that being said, not all of this is completely based off of that. Some of this is more teams that I recommend, especially being a mid-tier player. You're going to see something a little bit different at the mid-tier than what you would at the, the cutting-edge Kraken level of the game. Likewise, we also talk a little bit about some up-and-coming things. So with the GG website, you're seeing the past season of 3v3 and the data that it provides. And a lot of things have changed in the last month when we had 5v5 GAC. So we kind of take that into account as well as we go through this. So with that being said, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at our first team that we have here. This is the first of 10. We have 10 teams in total with one bonus team at the end, which I'll talk a little bit in a second. So our number one team here we have is Jedi. We're going to talk about two Jedi teams that I love to see on offense. The first one is the Jedi Knight Luke lead with Hermit Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi on his team as well. Sometimes Obi-Wan Kenobi is not needed depending on how difficult the First Order team you're facing is. I notice I said First Order. That's probably just the most common team that you're going to be using this against, but it's certainly not limited to just First Order. You can really use this team against a lot of different comps. It's a great offensive team. It's a very good leadership with Jedi Knight Luke, and Hermit Yoda just allows you to do so many amazing things. So super great team. The other nice thing about having Jedi on offense is it gives you a lot of flexibility. For instance, now obviously I'm not talking about Galactic Legends in this video, folks, nor do I talk about it in my defensive video. You can check that out if you would like to. These are all non-GL teams. Everyone knows what GLs can do. Everyone knows that they're good on offense and defense. This is more about the other teams that you can use. If you have some Galactic Legend Jedi and you use them on offense, this just gives you a ton of flexibility in terms of teams that you can use based on what you're seeing on the opponent's defense. The second team, though, that I like to use a lot with Jedi in particular is Jedi Knight Revan with Jolee or Grandmaster Yoda. Now, you can vary this a little bit with some other different Jedi, like Bastila Fallen or Bastila Shan, for instance. But I think this is probably the most common and probably the best version of that team. It depends a little bit on what you're facing, but this is a really, really solid team. It's going to beat a lot of different comps that are out there. And again, you've got some flexibility in terms of being able to switch stuff around and make it fit specifically what you need in your specific situation. All right, moving on to our third team. This probably should be number one, folks. This Omicron, if you have not gotten this, get it now. Like right now. Like pause the video. Open up your game. Joop, 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 joop. And get this Omicron. It is so good. I hope to God they do not nerf it. I don't think they will, to be honest with you. But it is amazing. This team is so good. Even without the Omicron, obviously Traya is a staple of 3v3 offense. It is such a great team. But man, with this new Omicron that she has, it is going to just blow teams out of the water, including, you have seen, I'm sure, Lord Vader teams. My gosh, is this team good. It is an amazing team. I did actually see a Traya team on defense for 5v5, and it was not fun. So I'm not saying it's only an offensive team here, folks, but man, is this, it's just, I feel like it's just such a waste on defense because you can really custom pick what you're using against it. And we did get the win because we were able to custom choose what we used. But my goodness, is this a great team. Oh, okay, sorry, I got to move on from my Traya fixation here, everybody. It's not easy to do. Next up, we've got Rebels / Scoundrels are going to kind of populate the whole next sequence of teams. The number one, and it's probably the most common team you're going to see in terms of Rebels and or Scoundrels, and that is CLS with 3PO and 2PO. Very, very common team you'll see on offense. Very, very effective against many different teams on defense. Strongly recommend this team. I actually made the mistake of not using them once, putting them on defense, and I immediately regretted that decision. They're so much better on offense, in my opinion, folks. Are they good on defense? Yes. But they're so flexible and can take on so many different teams. Strongly recommend that you have this team for offense. Next up, like I said, we've kind of combination of scoundrels / rebels going on here in these next two teams. Now, the leadership is what is flexible with this. The two cores of this team, though, are Han Solo and Chewbacca. They're both scoundrels and they are both rebels. So they've got a lot of flexibility in terms of who their leader is. Kira is probably the most common one that you're going to see at this stage of the game, simply because Dash works really well with L3 and with Vandor, whereas Kira not as much. So I think you're more commonly going to see Kira leadership on offense in particular, Dash Rendar on defense. The question mark with this, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, is Sana Starros. She's got a lot of rebel synergy, which they're both rebels. She has a lot of scoundrel synergy, which they're both scoundrels. Do I think this is the ideal use for Sana Starros? Probably not. But if you're looking for a really good team, and you don't have Kira, and you don't have Dash as leaders, Sana Starros certainly can work and be a very effective character for you in a leadership position there. All right, next up, we've got some resistance characters here. We've got Jedi Training Rey is the staple of this team, and then you've got some variation options here. You can either do R2-D2 and BB-8 for one pairing, or you can do Resistance Hero Poe and Resistance Hero Finn as your other two pairing. For me personally, just because of the relic levels, I usually run BB-8 and R2-D2. They're also very good against teams that have persistent taunts. They can easily remove a lot of their taunts, things like that. So that's typically what I will use this team for in terms of the version. But certainly if you've gone for Rey, Galactic Legend that is, then you may want to make the switch over to the Hero Handbag boys instead. To each their own. Okay, next up we have some Sith. Now, in our 3v3 defense team, we talked a lot about the advantages of the Sith Empire on defense. And while I prefer them on defense, you certainly could make an argument to have one of the versions of this on offense. And that would be the Darth Revan leadership team. What this looks like exactly depends on what you did on defense or what you did with Malgus more appropriately, is what I should say. Darth Revan lead with Bastila Fallen is probably the number one and number two that you need here. The third one is flexible. That is either Marauder or Malak. I talk about in my other video, if you want to use this on team on defense, you really should have Malak in there and not Marauder. If you've got Marauder in there, it's exclusively an offensive team in my opinion. Just so happens that I actually prefer this version for offense. I like Revan, I like Bastila Shan, and I like Marauder. So there you go. If you're playing against me, please don't watch this video and use that against me. Thank you. Next up, we've got some Imps. Two different teams of Imps here, folks. We've got the Veers, Piet, and Dark Trooper team, which is a turn meter based team. Needs to kill stuff ASAP, but it's very easy to do. Also, big note here, the Datacrons that are coming out, folks, are going to make a big difference with this team. They're obviously going to make a big difference with some other teams as well, but this one in particular is really going to see some growth from this because of the turn meter gain aspect of it. If you can get that Datacron, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The other version that you might want to use is the Iden Versio led team. So Iden, Death Trooper, and Range Trooper are very, very, very good as a combo on offense in particular. You notice there's no tank in this team. Would not recommend putting this on defense, but it is a very, very good offensive team in particular in 3v3. Okay, moving on to our next one we've got here. Whoops, too far. Is the Bad Batch. Kind of another group of characters that are unfortunately neutered. We kind of have the last three teams are very much neutered without their full aspect of complements in terms of characters. But this Bad Batch team can still be quite a few things. And that is the Hunter lead, Echo, and Tech being underneath them. I don't recommend trying to run Hunter plus the other two, Omega and Wrecker. It's not going to be near as effective as Echo and Tech. You're better off using Wrecker under a Cam leadership, for instance, and that gives you a pretty solid tank, at least in that scenario. But this is a really, really good team on offense. It's not going to hit up quite as well as it would in 5v5, but it's still very, very effective in 3v3. So that is our top 10 teams to use on offense outside of GLs. Our last one, like I said, these are all teams that really fit the past season of 3v3 GAC. They were very commonly used, they've been used a good bit, and we know they're going to work moving forward. But one team that we didn't see in the last GAC season, I think is going to be very prevalent this season, is the Sana Staros-led Rebel team. So I mentioned before that Sana Staros is a good possibility of a leadership under, or over, I should say, Han Solo as well as Chewbacca. I don't think that's the best use of Sana Staros, though. I think the best use of Sana Staros is this particular version of this team with Stormtrooper Han and Rollo. Could you get away with using somebody other than Rollo here? Maybe. But I think it's going to neuter some other teams too much in a 3v3 scenario. In 5v5, yes, I would change this a little bit and put... Okay, let's be honest. I'm talking... It's pretty obvious. I'm talking about Cara Dune, everybody. I would not recommend putting Stormtrooper Han and Cara Dune, on this team. I would keep Cara Dune over with Mon Mothma and let Rollo jump into this team. That gives you a little bit more offense. Rollo's way better in 3v3. We all know that. But I think this is going to be a really great team to use on offense. Not everyone's going to have it, obviously, because Sana Staros is a new character. But certainly worth a team looking into if you really love Sana Staros. You want to get her up and running. This is going to be a great team to use on offense in 3v3. Alright everybody, that'll pretty much wrap us up here for today. Hopefully you guys liked what you saw. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave me a like. Also, if you want to catch future content that we're putting out, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications down below. Last but not least, if you would like to join the live discussion on Discord, or if you would like to catch out the live GAC matches on Twitch, feel free to check the links in the video description down below. Alright everybody, catch you next time.